Welcome to Ocean Rider's Seahorse Farm. Join us as we take a tour.
The idea was to captivate people's interest in seahorses for the pet trade, and we would sell them a farm-raised domesticated seahorse so they wouldn't have to take one out of the wild. Because a wild seahorse lives about 2 weeks and dies in captivity. So they were taking about 1 million per year out of the ocean because they would die. They die because they have disease, because they're wild, because they pair bond for life. You know, all those things that we can get rid of when you domesticate the animal. So we domesticated the seahorse, we got them to eat frozen food, we got rid of the disease, we got them to be happy in a home environment, and that number of 1 million went down to 20,000. And this farm can produce all of those for the entire global pet trade. So after several years of producing seahorses for the pet trade, we realized that we needed to connect to more people than just people buying pets, which is about 4% of Americans. And so we also wanted to diversify our business. So when you have slumps in production, you're not, without revenue. So we decided to go into tourism. And since then, we started off with 2 species, and I think now we have close to 30 different species on the farm that we're breeding. Most all of them are endangered species. When we started off, when we moved our facility here, we realized there's a little shrimp that lives here in Hawaii called Opae that the seahorses like to eat. And we decided to dig this hole down here in hope of connecting with these underground highways which fill up these Aquaponic ponds so we could find the red shrimp. So come down here. And if you look carefully around here, you'll see the little red shrimp. And it was kind of a crazy thing. We did get a USDA grant to help us make the move from our first facility to here. So we actually spent $20,000 to dig this hole. And what we did is we dug it 8 feet below the low tide. Okay? And when we did that, the ocean water came up from the bottom and the fresh water started coming down from the mountains where it rains via lava tubes. In a few weeks after the pond filled up with water, the red shrimp showed up. So these little red shrimp are endemic to Hawaii. The only place in the entire world they're found is right here in Hawaii. And they're loaded with long-chain fatty acids, DHA and EPA. And that triggers reproduction in pretty much every animal on the planet, including the seahorse. So you see them right there. So we feed these to our breeding seahorses. And that kind of triggers reproduction in the seahorses. It's also kind of like birth control. You take the food away and you can slow down the breeding. So it's kind of a secret weapon. People thought we were crazy digging this hole, but it's turned out to be incredibly valuable for us. These little red shrimp are what we feed to our dragons. And it's probably why our dragons are so big and beautiful, and I'll show you those in a minute. If you have one of these leafy dragons in a public aquarium, you have to buy mysid shrimp, which is a live shrimp that you have to, buy from a supplier. And they come in, they're usually full of disease, and they're expensive, and they're not very nutritious. But we have this red shrimp pond, so our dragon program should be very successful. So this is our hatchery, and these are the baby seahorses. This is single species hatchery. This is our bread and butter species. Although we have close to 30 on the farm, this is the one that makes most of the money. And it happens to be an American seahorse, once common on the East Coast, Nova Scotia to Brazil. And then we have lots of side projects. This is a Banggai Cardinal pair. They're also an endangered species from Banggai, Indonesia. You remember Buck?
Yep.
He's 8. Yeah.
Buck.
And then we have some clownfish. It's still an incredibly popular fish to have as a pet.
And Finding Nemo?
Well, it's interesting what's going on in the reefs around the world. There's an incredible amount of pressure taking fish off the reefs for pets and for food. This particular fish has been farmed, you know, around the world. It's not hard to farm. But for some reason, a lot of the collectors still want the wild fish. So they're still going to the reefs and taking the wild clownfish. And they say because the farm-raised clownfish have lost their spark. In other words, they're not aggressive enough.
Oh.
So my approach on this is, well, that's a breeding problem. Whoever's been breeding them hasn't bred them properly. Because you can easily, you know, keep that trait in the animal. So we're breeding these guys in an effort to keep them a little bit more feisty for the pet owner. They don't want them too docile. You can believe that. These are the breeders for this species.
Oh, wow.
And when you go on the tour with Ashley, she'll tell you all about their mating dance, you know, their courtship ritual, and why people have so much love for the seahorse, you know.
They're so cute.
Yeah. You know, they have a prehensile tail like a monkey. Their eyes rotate independently like chameleons. They have a pouch like a kangaroo. They swim upright. They don't have scales. They have skin. And they look at you. They look right at you, you know. So they're just endearing. So we'll go out here and I'll show you. This area here is part of our live feed production area. We produce a lot of different types of phytoplankton and copepods and brine shrimp, and that's Rosie, our Moluccan cockatoo. That means I love you. This is my husband, Craig.
Hello.
Hello.
Just doing packing some
You remember
Seahorse.
Jared?
I've never met Craig. No, I don't
You ever
know.
met Greg?
Even when we were doing
More of the red shrimp.
So packing up some seahorses and a few red shrimp. These are going to Jeff Bridges. Yeah.
He's a fan. We didn't know it. These are just some of the juveniles. They're about probably 5-6 months old. Seahorses do not grow quickly. It takes about 1.5 years to get them to market. And once you get started, it's not really a problem. You just have to, you know, produce the right numbers every month. But one of our secrets is that we sell big, beautiful animals. And I'll show you what they look like when they're ready to go to market. And nobody can compete with us on that because our quality is so superb. There's some there.
Oh, wow.
These 3 tanks. Yeah. But we've had competitors, you know, try and come in from Florida, from California, from Asia, and they just never last very long because they produce a seahorse that's very tiny, and they can't figure out how to make them so friendly. So they usually go to a home aquarium and they don't want to eat, they're not happy, and they die. And
can we touch any of them?
we can hold them in a minute when we go down there. Okay. These guys are, they obviously are looking for food.
Do they have teeth or anything?
No teeth. They just have a suction cup mouth, and they suck the food down. And on the tour, you'll see them feed them, and you can watch that.
Oh, they have, it looks like wings.
Yeah, they look like hummingbirds. They have the dorsal fin in the back, and then the pectoral fins on the side.
Wow. Oh, those two are holding on. How cute.
Yeah, so they've produced a lot of seahorses in these shrimp ponds in Asia for the medicine market. Because the medicine market used to take about 50 million per year. Because they're believed to be the natural Viagra of the East. So they produce them for the medicine trade, and then the leftovers they dump on the pet trade in the United States. But they're so small, I mean they're like this big, they won't eat frozen food, and they die so quickly, they've really never had you know, an impact. So we're able to keep our niche market alive. And we sell direct using Seahorse.com and the internet. So we're able to get the, I would get him a bigger pair. It's pretty.
Bigger pair.
How pretty.
So when people order our seahorses, they ask for certain things, like, you know, yellow with white stripes and starbursts, or red, or orange, or pinto, or red. We basically have 5 different types from one species just through selective breeding.
Oh my goodness, that is
Just
amazing.
so you know, we never let anybody film these.
Oh really?
No, this is absolutely off limits. So this was the project
Thank
that
you.
we started, right?
Yes. Yeah. This was funded completely by NOAA and Gary's project. And when we got the animals in, they were close to $10,000 a piece by the time you got shipping. And we would have purchased more if we could have, but what happens is there's one person who's really in love with you guys that his name is Penguin from southern Australia, and he gets one permit. He's the only person in the world that gets this permit to take one gravid male out of the ocean once a year. That one gravid male goes into a tank like this and will release 50 or 60 babies into the water column, and they're born live and swimming just like seahorses. And then what he does is he goes to the ocean to get live mysid shrimp and feeds the baby dragons, okay? So when they're about 3 months old, they're about this big. And then he sells them to public aquariums around the world for close to $10,000 a piece. No refund if they die. And because Dad goes back to the ocean, we never met Mom. There's no close net. They made it in the ocean.
Oh, okay.
So there's no domestication going on. So what that means is that they only live about a year in captivity. So most public aquariums have to buy these animals every year. And nobody's been able to breed them in captivity yet. So these guys are 5 years old now. And the females are producing eggs every 3 months. And the problem that we're having is that she, for whatever reason, is not able to get the eggs on the tail of the male. And what we think is happening is the tanks are too short.
Oh.
So we're in the process now of trying to figure out how to get some taller tanks in. So it's one of those Hawaii things, you know, the tank is not expensive, but the shipping is outrageous.
Yeah.
So we're looking at close to $10,000 just to get new tanks for the dragons. So we started up a foundation, a 501c3, about 3 years ago, and the hope is to get contributions to help us with these projects that, you know, Gary's project used to help us with. So we're now going to the private sector saying, can you guys help us out? And so we get donations that trickle in. Not a lot, but it helps.
These are amazing. Can you see this?
So when they dance, they do this, excuse me, I kind of lost my voice. They do this circular dance like this, and then they go up like that. It's a really beautiful dance. You know, it's amazing because, you know, when we finally got the grant and everything got okayed, I called up this guy, Paying Kwang, and I said, you know, I want to buy, I think I had asked for 10.
Yeah, you did. You only found 4,000.
You know, but I was going to somehow figure out a way to get it. You know? And he said, I'm not selling you one. He said, forget it. And I don't know if I ever told you this part of the story. He said, no. And I said, well, look, I'll put the money in the bank right now. You know, right now. He's like, no, I don't want them. You know, I don't want your money. I'm not selling them. And I said, well, look, if you change your mind, just call me. You know? So 6 months went by. He called me up one day and he goes, I got 4. If you put the money in the bank today, I'll ship them tomorrow. So we had to be ready. Because I said, oh yeah, because somebody, one of the public aquariums, fell through. The deal fell through. They didn't put the money in time, whatever. He wanted to get rid of them because he wanted to go on vacation. Because they're eating all this live mysids out of the ocean every day. He was getting crazy feeding them. So that's how we got them. Just luck,
So how old are these ones?
They're 5 years old.
5?
And they eat the red shrimp.
Okay. That's why they're so huge?
That's why they're so huge, and nobody can believe it when they see them. They're just
These are amazing. I'm stunned that...
I mean...
They were like that when they came in.
I was not expecting that.
They've done really, really well, and...
do you showcase these on the tour?
Yeah, people will come by here. We don't allow any photographs, and nobody's allowed to touch them. When we first started off, we put them in aquariums inside, which I can show you right now. But they didn't like the aquariums. They would go to the back wall and hit the back.
Oh, wow.
They had no perception of an edge, right? They're from the ocean. Why would they, right? And so we put them out here, and we started off with a lot of artificial plants. We thought, oh, they'd like that. They didn't like it because they kept running into them. So we took everything out of the tank, and they just are happy as can be right here. They love each other. They want to be with each other. Yeah. It's not the plants they want. It's not the habitat. They just want to be able to be with each other. We had this really cool water system where the water comes in and it goes out. So we just use the water once. It's not like a public aquarium that recirculates their water. So if they had a parasite or some disease, it would get flushed out.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
And then we move the animals every 7 to 8 days to a new tank. So this is their 2 tanks here. So we clean them, fill them again, and then we move the animals. So it kind of breaks the cycle of any disease. And that's top secret.
Well, thank you.
It's very simple, actually, but it's something that most aquariums can't do. They can't move the animals from tank to tank. Once they're in the tank, they're there their whole life.
Yeah, that's their home.
The only people in the United States breeding?
Yeah, I mean the public aquariums like, Atlantic Aquarium, Monterey Bay, they all have them, but they've never been able to produce eggs. We've produced eggs, we haven't produced the live dragon yet, but I'm pretty sure this year is going to be our year.
Keep my fingers crossed.
You want to go? We also produce seaweed, and it's basically an accessory for the seahorses, but it's become a big hit on the tours because we show people, I mean, we're all used to seaweed, right? Mm-hmm. But most Americans, they would think, what is seaweed, And so we're showing them this is like, lettuce of the East, right? And it's a very important food right now with all the radioactivity coming out of Japan. It's the product in seaweed that's going to save us from radioactivity. And
really?
You don't need any pesticides to grow it. All you need is salt water and sunshine. And it's a great sustainable food.
Huh.
This is going to be a saltwater aquaponic system. So we're going to use saltwater tilapia to produce sea asparagus.
Oh, wow.
Sea asparagus is a new microgreen that has all those, fatty acids, all that special stuff you need. And it's also being used as a biofuel in Israel. It's a complete marine system. No fresh water needed, and it'll be powered by the sun. So it's a prototype that we hope to transfer to nations like Tonga, Samoa, places in the South Pacific where they have these beautiful reefs, and they're starting to eat their reef, because they're taking all the food. So we can provide them with this system. They can eat the tilapia as a fish, and they have greens as well in one little system without having to plug into a grid, electrical power system, and without having to use fresh water.
Wow.
So it'll be a demonstration for the tour, and we're hoping to get some contributions through our foundation to transfer this technology out to some of these South Pacific islands. And you can also do it in your backyard. It's quite popular here in Hawaii. If you have a little bit of sun and it's warm, you can put it in your patio and you can produce things like tomatoes or strawberries.
Really?
With some fish, you know, the waste, you know, produce fertilizer, phosphate and nitrate. It goes right back into the plant.
Wow.
So you're free of pesticides, and you know, something that you can get in your patio. You can do a little system or a big system. There's some huge systems on Oahu. Freddie Lau, Clyde knows him. Amazing what he's done. He can't keep up. And it's all organic, you know, or lettuces, and he sells the tilapia, and it's just an amazing new business popping up here in Hawaii. So, and sea asparagus. Okay, let's say if you had them producing in Tonga, the Tongans themselves would actually be able to eat their own food rather than take it off the reef or bring it in from China. Use it in their own resorts, you know, because they have quite a good ecotourism industry popping up. They might be able to export it to other Pacific islands. And who knows? I mean, if it could become an export to the United States, wow. You know, the sea asparagus, you know, would be a great money maker, because these people don't have any money, you know? All they have is their reef, and if they destroy their reef, they got nothing. A lot of our animals are so delicate that we can't culture them in a traditional hatchery system. We have to go to what's called a Mesocosm System. And basically what we do is we feed lots of different live microplanktons to the system, and they kind of come up, and the animals basically graze. So it's more like a natural reef. And that's pretty much the only way you can culture some of these super delicate reef fish and seahorse. So this area here is part of what was funded by the program that Gary helped us with. And this area here is for new species of seahorses. And since the grant, we've gotten, I think, 6 new species through, including the Hawaiian seahorse, 2 species. Very successful program. And these tanks basically are used in a mesocosm system, kind of like this here. So it allows us to get these delicate species through. And I'll show you a couple that are actually on the market right now. But anyways, this is one of the reef fish that we've been very successful. Take a look at these guys here. They're really cute.
So these are considered fish?
Yeah, these are fish. They're pipefish. I just got to change this real quick. And they're a popular pet.
I've never seen that either.
And you call them pipefish?
Red-banded pipefish.
Red-banded pipefish.
So, you know, they go out every day with the seahorses, compatible with the seahorses.
Are you selling any of the Banggai Cardinals at all?
Yeah, oh yeah, the Banggai Cardinals are popular, and these are all full of different species of seahorses. Right here, just like the dragons. And so we're kind of using these guys as a prototype, so to speak, so we can figure out how to handle the eggs of the dragon once they're on there. What we have to do is actually physically take the eggs off, kind of brush them off to get them to hatch.
Are these females and males in here?
Yeah, those are all juveniles. I mean, there's a lot of them. It's very successful.
These are very cool looking. They almost look like seahorses.
They're in the same family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see naturally.
That's amazing looking.
This is a yellow Tang tank. And if you go up that ladder and look down in there, you'll see a school of yellow tangs. And you may or may not know, but in Hawaii they take 2 to 10 million fish off our reefs every year for the pet trade. In Australia they take 200,000 period. Why are we letting them take all the fish off our reefs? It's a $15 permit, anybody can get it, unlimited catch. It's crazy. So it's a big fight right now, a huge emotional battle between the few collectors, of which there's 68, and everybody else. Okay? So what we're trying to do about it is produce the fish, get them on the market, and let the consumer make a choice. And once they're educated, they're going to choose a farm-raised yellow tang over a wild-caught fish off the Hawaiian reefs. They're just gonna. And that'll just solve the problem. Of course, the challenge is that these yellow tangs, no one's ever bred them before. There's no recipe to follow. And when they're born, they're so tiny. They're just so tiny. They have to eat tiny, tiny copepods, tiny, tiny plankton, and other types of microorganisms that come up in these mesocosm tanks. But anyways, if you go up here and if you go up, climb up here and look down,
Okay.
you'll see them. The secret, what we realize about the yellow tangs and a lot of these reef fish is that there's two ways you can get them to spawn. One is you give them home. So who wants to live with home?
Oh.
So what we've done here is given them height. So the pressure works in that when the animals go in a circle, sit, and they release, they get to know each other, they release, terminate again. They go up. As they go up, the pressure pushes out the eggs from the front. So they're able to fertilize. So that happens at about this height right here. The future is going to be, lots of these super tall tanks for breeding the reef fish. But once we can do this, then that means there's no need to take so many fish off the reefs around the world.
Yeah, that'll be so amazing.
And what's happening now is that, China's coming online, right, with everything. They want marine aquariums. And they want exotic stuff in them. Where are they going to get it? Well, they're out there in the Pacific taking everything.
Sad.
So, it's a hidden problem. People don't see it. You got to go out there in the water and get down there to see it. You see, there's a parrot. They're mating.
Oh, wow.
So there's two types of Hawaiians. There's a pelagic and there's a reef Hawaiian seahorse. And someone gave us this big tank. Some rich guy, he wanted to get the aquarium out of his garage because he didn't have enough room for his fourth Mini Cooper. So he gave us this big aquarium in about 20 boxes of coral. And so, yeah, it's right over there. I don't want it. But,
Oh, wow.
they come out with their class, and they each have their tank of seahorses. So I gave them the coral and I let them spray paint the coral so they could see the seahorses change color. Because they put the seahorses in there and then they basically change color.
So this is spray painted coral?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're doing this with the kids?
Yeah, this is a kids program that we have, and each child has their own tank, and they come out here once a week for a couple hours, and they feed the seahorses, they clean the tank, they take care of the babies, and then we do fun science. One of the things that 8-year-olds love to do is dissect. So we have some specimens in our freezer. We take them out and they get to open them up and look at the heart and the liver and the stomach, and they think it's so cool. And they do things like check temperature and check pH and check oxygen and learn about, the ocean.
They are so little.
Yeah,
I didn't realize they were that little.
Really? We're going to put a little Polynesian style fale for a classroom. Something very simple, very cheap. So the idea is we're kind of making a model marine science center that can also be transferred with that aquaponic system. So you transfer the aquaponics and a science center so you can teach sustainability to these, peoples in the South Pacific.
How many schools are you working with in this area?
Right now we just have 2.
Which ones?
And we have a lot of schools that come down for the tour.
Which ones are you
But as
working
far as coming out here, Opae, and that's my children's,
What
school
grades?
that they go to. It's just second grade.
Second.
Yeah. But we can, do keiki to high school. It's very, very easy. But what I've noticed here in Kona, and I think it's typical of Hawaii, I don't know about the mainland, but there's an incredible lack of marine science in the curriculum in the schools. And you know, for children that grow up in Hawaii, they should be, I mean, they are the caretakers, they are the stewards of this ocean. They have to know what's going on. And they basically get no exposure at all. And when you talk to the public schools, they have like 2 days free. I mean, they're so wrapped up in getting their testing done and passing those tests. They can't even find, like, you know, half a day a week to bring the kids down for a hands-on marine science class, you know. So it's tricky.
I bet.
You know, but it's so valuable for the kids. I mean, you know, an 8-year-old, after one class, you can't believe how much they know and how excited they are and how bad they want to come back. You know, especially when you give them a pair of seahorses, you say, "That's your pair, name them." And they get to hold them in their hands, and you know, their heart's just like, "Oh, I love my seahorses." But they each have, you know, their own setup. They all pick their corals and pick their seahorses, and they actually come out tomorrow. So tomorrow they'll clean their tanks. And
how cool! I would have loved to have something like this as a kid.
Yeah, and they really feel, you know,
I want
ownership.
one as an adult.
So if they feel that same ownership, you know, with the coral reefs, I think we can actually start to do something about it, you know, the problems that we have. I got the an addition onto our property about 200 feet that way for more dragon breeding. I want to give them more peace and quiet because we now have neighbors. So I'm pretty sure we're going to get some offspring this year, and then we'll kind of put them out there where there's more quiet, so we can get several generations through.
Great.
So we missed the introduction of the tour.
Like pectoral fins that steer left and right.
Millions of those shrimp in there.
Yeah, you got it. There's millions of little shrimp in here. You guys see them? Mm-hmm. They're all over. Do you guys know what kind of shrimp that is?
Mm-hmm. Creeps me out.
Creeps you out. Well, this would make a seahorse very happy. If you ever bought these in the back of a comic book as a pet, you might know what they are.
Oh, the sea monkeys.
They're sea monkeys, yeah. Tiny little sea monkeys. I would have been very upset if I bought this and, you know, this came home to me. Yeah, definitely. Now, these guys, little sea monkeys, they're also called brine shrimp. They come to us off the Great Salt Lake in Utah. This is what they look like.
Is that the only place in the world they come from?
It's not the only place in the world, but it is the largest distributor in the world. And today, they come like this. They pop them in coffee cans, they ship them all over the world, multi-billion-dollar industry, right? You need 2 things to get these eggs to hatch. What do you guys think they need?
Water.
Water's the easy one.
Sun?
Sun, yeah, what we don't have today. Sunlight. Heat source. Within 24 hours, they'll hatch into a baby brine shrimp, about the size of a period at the end of a sentence. Perfect size for that baby seahorse mouth, right? 2 weeks later, we have a shrimp that is full-grown adult shrimp size of about 2 centimeters. It's impressive. It's, you know, a fast-growing live shrimp we can feed to a multiple different sized live-growing seahorse. It sounds pretty easy. When you add water, add sun, you have insta-shrimp. We have about 20,000 animals on our farm that we have to feed every single day. About 30 different endangered species. This is exactly the best battle plan we could come up with. Fast shrimp, abundant, economical, cheap. But there was one problem with this shrimp. It's lacking the key ingredient a seahorse requires to survive.
The fat?
The fat, exactly. On a scale from 1 to 10, a brine shrimp is about a 0. Nutritionally void for a seahorse. Knowing that, we decided to grow high-fatty microalgae, different vitamins, different minerals, and feed it to the brine shrimp. They eat anything. Shrimp are amazing. And they come with little stomachs, they stuff them full, and at the end of the day, we can actually take the shrimp out and feed them off to our seahorses. It's kind of like putting vitamins in gummy bears for children, you guys. Same idea, works perfect for our picky little seahorses. Now, what you guys are looking at is not just a brine shrimp today. It's actually part of a new science, a new industry called live feed or gut loading. And this new technology today is actually what allows us to breed those pretty little fish you guys see on the coastlines while snorkeling and diving, right on land. But it gets better yet. We're starting to learn how to farm our oceans. We can even breed the food we like to eat on land. People have been successful in breeding mahi-mahi and bluefin tuna. But the question goes out there, why do we even have to do this?
The ocean pollution.
Ocean pollution, that's a huge one. We have the greatest impact as humans along our coastal waterways, our agricultural wastes, our industrial runoffs. Look at our sewage, where does it go? It goes to the coral reefs, the seagrass beds, the mangrove swamps, the estuaries. Those are also, you guys, the nursery grounds for the ocean. If we don't have healthy nurseries, we don't have healthy fish. Big problem, right? But there's another big one. Another big. Is there enough fish in the ocean for us to eat? No. Overfishing. Overfishing has been a big problem. Fishermen today are able to go out there and catch fish at a faster rate than we've actually seen the fish reproducing. Now, how many people live on our planet?
7 billion?
7 billion this year, as of National Geographic's last month magazine. 7 billion this year. Scientists have been roughly calculating what's been coming out of the ocean over the last 50 years, and they believe about 90% of the fish have been taken out. That leaves us 7 billion people today, 10% of the fish, to not only feed our populations, but to restock the ocean for our children and grandchildren. Do you guys think that's going to work? Currently, right now, at the rate we fish, it's not. They believe we have about 29 more years. That locks us in at about 2040, you guys. That's scary to me, because I plan on being here in 2040. My children and grandchildren, and what I want for them is that ocean to look better today, better than it does today. I'd like it to look better than it did 50 years before. So, what we're looking at today is kind of a complement between farm-raised fish and wild-caught fish. Something that is a bit more sustainable. So I know you guys out there have probably heard a lot of negative about farm-raised fish. And you can admit it. Have you guys heard bad things about farm-raised fish? Oh, yeah. I see some heads going like this.
Just the farm-raised salmon.
Just the farm-raised salmon. It goes beyond that, but they kind of gave a bad rap. The media got a hold of that. Really got a hold of that. And there are people out there that are doing it right. There are people doing it wrong. So I can't give anyone a blanket endorsement. And just like today, there are still sustainable fisheries. There are people going out there wild catching fish in sustainable manners that will leave enough for the future and enough brood stock for our children and grandchildren to enjoy the same animals we enjoy today. But as consumers, it's hard to know who's doing it right. So when you guys go to grocery stores, when you guys go to restaurants, how do you know? How do you know what fish are good to eat? You guys in Alaska might have it pretty easy.
Yeah, well, I have my own.
Yeah. Alaska today still is a good sustainable fishery. But those people who live in Kansas, what do you do? Have you guys ever heard of Monterey Bay in California? Mm-hmm. Okay, hands down, probably one of the most progressive aquariums out there. They've gone out, they've done all the homework for us. They've compiled lists of fish that are actually good for us to eat. And they go as about why they're good to eat. And fish that we might want to avoid. And what it's called is the Seafood Watch Card, the Seafood Watch program. Have you guys heard of that? You're saying yeah? Yeah? Now, these are the easiest lists to follow today. When you go to the restaurants, when you go to the grocery stores, you can compare them. And they have them localized for anywhere in our country today. Where you can go, is this tilapia good to eat? Why? Is this tuna good to eat? Why? And if you've never seen those lists, I will give them to you at the end of the tour. Check it out. It's the easiest thing as a consumer. To not only support the guy doing it right, focused on sustainability, but also to know where your food comes from. I like to know where it comes from.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah, they've gone out and done all the homework for us. I think that's the best part.
What do they say the best fish is to eat?
The best fish today, one of the best ones in our country, is farm-raised tilapia. Believe it or not. Farm-raised tilapia in our country, the freshwater, is one of the best ones to eat. But also they say the Alaskan wild-caught is one of the best things to eat today too, if you're along the west coast. But take a look at that list, I'll give you one. Compare it, definitely. All right, now, hands down, the best sustainable seafood product grown on land today. Do you guys know what it is? The best one. It's not fish.
Shrimp.
It's not shrimp? That's a good guess though.
Seaweed?
Seaweed, exactly. Today, seaweed is the best food grown on the planet, on land, and you guys get to try some next. And we're gonna go down to the end, small row blue tanks. You guys get to dig in. This is our salad bar. You can eat everything you like down there. I will never stop you. Let's go on. More trace minerals than any other food known to man.
Good, let me get you some.
Tastes like crunchy, salty vegetables. Crunchy, salty vegetables. Like, if I could describe it to you guys, I'd say it's like throwing a bunch of sprouts in salt water and eating them. We don't have very brave eaters here. You guys are brave eaters. What do you think?
There you go.
The green one's yeah.
Not big on the texture, but it tastes okay.
The green one, I don't like the texture either. The taste is fine, but the texture is like a plastic bag. The red one, it's like textured like sprouts. And taste kind of like eating salty sprouts.
We're gonna rinse it off of that. That doesn't get out of the
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
We're gonna rinse it off, it's probably way better.
A lot of people rinse it, they blanch it, they put it in soy sauce, salad, soups, next to your fish on your sandwiches. If you eat at any local restaurants, there's a good chance you've already eaten this, despite your knowledge. You may have already eaten this.
This is great.
This is the red one's really good, isn't it? If I grew up on it instead of lettuce, I would never know the difference, truthfully. But finding more trace minerals in seaweed than any other food on the planet, they've started doing a lot of correlative research. They're finding that there are lower rates of cancer, primarily breast cancer and thyroid disease, amongst Asians, due to their high seaweed diets. So you guys can eat all the seaweed you like. You can grab snacks for the road. I'll give you a whole bag if you want to take some home. But I know it is salty, so there's a red cooler behind us. Feel free to grab a glass of water if you need it. It is, if you're not used to the salt, it's definitely salty. And at this point, you guys are ready to take your cameras out. You can turn your flashes off, and we're checking out some more seahorses. You take all the photos you like. Be a pest, and the Canadians are more than happy to get rid of it. So they do harvest it off. They sell it to the aquaculture industry, pet trades around the world. Awesome food for seahorses. It is absolutely loaded with fat. Perfect. Now the trick was getting them to eat it. Is that still frozen? You might want to just keep shaking a second here. Now, taking a look at this frozen shrimp, why do you guys think the seahorses wouldn't want to eat it when we first started? What's wrong with it?
It's not salty.
They're not moving.
It's not moving. It's really that simple. Our goal here was to take a predator and teach them to be a scavenger to extend their life. So you can actually take that container. It's okay if there's a little frozen piece, that's okay still. They'll pick it apart. You can open it up and kind of dump it towards the middle of the tank and watch the guys race. Somebody have big dreams, they'll go after the big piece.
Big dreams.
Big dreams, they'll go after it, they'll eat it.
So do they sell these in pairs or
We do sell them in pairs, and I'm going to show you guys how we sell them.
so they don't break them up from after they're
Right,
mated? Yeah.
right.
I was going to say, that seems kind of sad.
Now these guys, they're eating the frozen shrimp. They like it. Now, it took a little time to convince them. It boiled down for us to find one very brave and one very hungry little seahorse. He had to try the shrimp all himself. And sure enough, he liked it. What do you guys think? We named a seahorse that likes it.
Shrimp.
Who likes it?
Mikey!
Likes it. Yeah. Our Mikey ate anything. And seahorses, being smarter than your average goldfish, they learn through observation. They'll actually copy each other. Seahorses in his tank all started copying him. They all started eating frozen shrimp. Well, we caught on. We gave Mikey a job. He got to travel. He went from tank to tank to tank across our entire farm, and he taught every seahorse how to eat frozen shrimp.
That one seahorse?
That one seahorse. And this happened for about a year. But then we noticed all the animals eating the shrimp began to reproduce. The shrimp's high in fat, right? Me guys, one guess what the babies did.
They ate it.
They ate it. They ate it. You know what, today, we actually found it out by accident. We had gone down feeding the animals. We tossed some shrimp in one of the juvenile tanks. They're about 4 or 5 months old. There was about 20 seahorses that just went and started eating it. And then the rest started following. Today we have the same thing happen. We have about 20, 30 Mikeys in every group. They eat it, they like it, they live 12 years and counting on it, even in the home aquariums. These guys are different than your wild seahorses. They're scavenging. They're living longer. Now we did have one other trait to tackle. Big one, monogamy. Seahorses, they do want to mate for life. Kind of a pesky little trait when you're in danger. Can't really be picky, right? But they like to do this Romeo-Juliet style. That means if one seahorse is separated from their mates, they stress over the loss, they stop eating, they will slowly die. Knowing that from day one, we decided that we would give our seahorses a lot of friends. We gave them a lot of selection. Let's see what happened, right? They pitched monogamy out to the ocean. They're looking at the world's only swinging seahorses.
Yeah.
The only ones.
I've noticed that. There's like two.
They're all over together, right? Yeah. They all hunker down, they all sleep together at night, and these seahorses, by far, have really benefited from this loss of monogamy. Today, they mate with whoever they like. When we sell them in pairs, but we pick a male, we pick a female, off they go, pre-arranged marriage, and they are just fine. Happy as could be. Now, taking a look at these guys finishing up their lunch here, what do you think about the water? How does that look?
Really clear.
Really clear and clean, huh? Cleanest fish tank water I've ever seen in my life, hands down. Now it comes into us from right up there, by the state of Hawaii. At the end of the gravel road where you folks are all parked, there are 2 pipelines that run on out. They're laid in there about 27, maybe 28 years ago now. And the pipelines go first at 100 feet out, pulling in warm surface water. Second pipeline, bit more impressive, goes 3,000 feet below. Now, pulling up the deep seawater, it's about a 40-degree difference between the 2 pipelines. What do you guys think they were drawing water in for 27 years ago? What do you guys think?
Drawing water in from the ocean?
They're drawing water in from the ocean. Key with that temperature difference.
Oh, for pools.
Not pools.
For the energy?
Energy. They're creating energy. What you guys are standing on is the old base of an energy plant called OTEC, the Oceanic Thermal Energy Converter. And the idea behind it was to use the natural temperature difference found in our oceans to create green energy. It might have been a good idea, but let me tell you, it was just poorly executed. Very poorly executed. And what they decided from day one is they put up generators to run the pumps. What do generators typically run on?
Gasoline.
Gas, diesel, yeah. They barge diesel to the island to produce green energy. Now, economic bust. For every 10 cents of diesel, they could produce 11 cents of energy. The entire plant didn't last long. It got shut down. And today, what you guys are standing in, this Nelha Park, the Natural Energy Lab, it's the bailout plant. There are about 40 different businesses dedicated to research, dedicated to aquaculture, all using the same pipelines to a bum energy plant. Now, out of about the 40 businesses down here, we stand as one of the only mom and pop shops. That means, from day one, husband and wife team, Carol and Craig, they started this business on their life savings of $50,000. They don't go out towards venture capitalists, they don't ask for those research subsidies. A lot of them come with strings attached. And they really wanted to keep their autonomy from day one. They were quite selective. So what they did is they depended on this sale of Seahorse out to the home aquariums to bring the profit back to the farm. And that stayed on the farm, went into the animals, into the breeding programs, and also to help fund all of our research. Now, we today, for the last 5 years, have also opened up our doors for folks like you coming on in here. Take a look at the farm. Prior to that, we never knew anybody wanted to see a Seahorse farm. So when it came down to it, somebody knocked on our door, we said, great idea. Let's give tours. Because one of our stipulations was that the money you guys spend does stay on the farm. It goes back into the animals, goes into expanding our breeding programs, and even our education programs today. So thank you guys very much for coming. We could not do it without you. Now, over the last couple of years, we did open up a nonprofit organization based out of here called the Seahorse of Hawaii Foundation. It is a 501c3 tax-deductible nonprofit foundation. People wanted to donate 100% to conservation. This allowed us to open the doors to do that. We were able to start working towards marine protected areas throughout the Hawaiian Islands here, giving up kind of like a wildlife sanctuary where fish can breed, they can survive and not be touched. Help restock the ocean, work towards sustainability. Now we also are working on breeding programs for a lot of the native Hawaiian fish, like the native Hawaiian seahorse you'll see at the end of the tour. The yellow tang, which I'm sure you guys have seen right off our coastline. It's pretty neon fish, yellow. Also the flame angels, hot items, all for the pet trade. But one of our largest challenges came down about 4.5 years ago, the leafy sea dragons. Now, some of you guys said you've seen them, but most of you guys said no, right? Have not seen the dragons. Now, the reason we were able to get a hold of the dragons was not only the Seahorse of Hawaii Foundation, but a very wonderful grant from NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmosphere Administration. It allowed us to take on the challenge to be the first in the world to breed the dragons. It is the only grant we have ever accepted on the farm, and it allowed us to purchase 4 little dragons this big. 4 little dragons. Now, do you guys know where the sea dragons are from?
Where are they from?
Where are they? They're cold water. They're about 15 degrees colder than the Seahorse, so the water right out here. They're coming from only one small area of the world. It's the southernmost tip of Australia, from Kangaroo Island. Now, the Australian government, they manage their wildlife type proving. That's it. The only place. One struggling population. And what happened is we found out the permitting laws over there allow one man, one time a year, Mr. Pang Quang, to take one pregnant or gravid sea dragon out of the ocean. That's it. He's allowed to hatch the offspring, release the male, and then the little babies, when they're this big, they're about 3 months old, they're sold to public aquariums around the world. Do you guys want to take a guess how much a sea dragon costs?
$1,000?
Multiply by 10.
10 grand?
They're about 10 grand a piece, 8 to 10 grand a piece for a little baby sea dragon, this big. That's a lot of money for a fish. Now you think it'd be a pretty good investment, right? Right? 25, 30 years, these dragons will easily live in the ocean. In a public aquarium, they live on average about 1 to 2 years. 1 to 2. They begin to breed around 5 years of age. That's kind of typical, right in there. Now, our 4 dragons, this big. Today, our 4 dragons about this big. They're absolutely huge. And the best news I can give you guys, coming up on about 4.5, 5 years of age, last summer for the first time, the females did produce eggs. That's exciting. And we actually, the unfortunate part is we have the eggs. They were never fertilized. Like the male seahorse, the dragon does all the work. The female's job is to place the eggs along his belly, where they get fertilized, they get carried, and hatched. Well, the transfer was unsuccessful, and a lot of it could really be they're just not mature enough yet. So we're crossing our fingers, we're saying a little prayer. You can give them some encouragement along the way. They will get this right. And we are going to go see them next, and because we're coming right around on that breeding season again, it was March 30th last year for the first time, so we're right in that same window. We want to keep their stress as low as possible, and we ask no photos of the sea dragons. They're in a tank just like this. We're gonna walk on by them. Everybody will get a chance to see them. But we also ask, as we go on by the tank, be very cautious, do not touch their tank. And that is important to keep your hands clean so we can hold a seahorse immediately after. You guys are all ready to hold seahorses, right? Yeah? All right. I heard like...
Not really.
Well, you can introduce your seahorse. That's Sam. He's probably about 8 years old. You can see his, being a male, you can see his big pouch. About halfway down his belly, going down the base of his tail. That soft, kind of solid color skin. That's the pouch. So now if he was a gravid male or pregnant male, you'd see it expanding like a balloon. But right now it's pretty flat, pretty flush. No babies. And when you get real close to the top of his head, you can see how he's exhaling right through the top. Their gills are internal, so what you're looking at are the cheeks that puff in and out. So they're pumping the water through the snout up through the top of their head. Unlike other fish, many fish need to swim to breathe. These guys can sit still and pump the water. And when they're relaxed, do you see how his fins on the side of his head, those little pectoral fins?
Yeah.
They're resting. They kind of fold back like little ears and they just rest.
So that he doesn't have to swim around.
He doesn't have to swim, he's just resting. Even the dorsal fin on his back, just resting.
I love the gold spots all over him.
Oh yeah, a lot of these guys kind of have that gold underlay. And sometimes it's silver. It just depends on your seahorse. And this species, the American seahorse, ranging from Nova Scotia to Brazil, they are so many different colors. You're getting yellows, oranges, reds, blacks, silvers, browns, where he's kind of a reddish brown. And you get all that kind of zebra striping as part of his camouflage.
So they do change colors?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
With their surroundings, with their moods.
And are the males and females different colors?
The males and females are not different colors. Yeah, you can get anything. They're not even different sizes, typically. You can have a bigger female than a male, in a lot of cases. Well, he looks like he's staying till dinner. Do you have anywhere to be? We'll let him go. You can separate your hands, and I'll tell Sam to leave. He's kind of comfortable on his coral reef there. And if you have any questions about it, feel free to ask me about it as well. But there was one last thing I did promise you guys, and that was these seafood watch cards. Lists of fish that are good to eat, alternative choices, fish to avoid. And the one I have in my hand here, this one below green fish, this is from Hawaii. If you'd like one while you're on vacation, there's one on the table just behind me. But otherwise, tell me where you guys are from. I'll give you a localized list for your backyard. And at any point, if you guys are ready to head out, the white door behind me, that is the exit to the gift shop. But feel free to ask me questions, feel free to take photos. And before you go, I want to thank you guys very much for coming. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very cool. Did you like it?
Cool. Check your
Jaws. If you lose the reef fish, or lose the reef lines, then you will if you just stop the collection or implementation.
If you're on the Big Island, be sure to stop by Ocean Rider Seahorse for this spectacular tour. Mahalo for touring with me.